every day, more evidence emerges in the impeachment inquiry into President Trump, including damning new text messages. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. As you'll recall, this all started when we found out that on an official phone call, the president dangled hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine, and in return asked the president of Ukraine to gin up politically motivated investigations by telling him, quote, "I would like you to do us a favor." Now, we already had the notes from the call in a whistleblower's account that was deemed credible and urgent, but over the weekend, things got even worse for Trump when a second whistleblower came forward.
This morning, more breaking news. ABC News has learned that the legal team representing the first whistleblower is now representing a second whistleblower. Attorney Mark Zaid told me that this second whistleblower is a member of the intelligence community with firsthand information on some of the allegations at issue.
I gotta say, I'm shocked there are only two whistleblowers. I mean, you could blow the whistle on this guy constantly. He's like a soccer player who runs down the length of the field with the ball in his hands and then just throws it into the net. What do you mean, offsides? Was I offside? Now, Trump and many Republicans have tried a few different arguments to defend his behavior, and none of them have been convincing. First, they argue that there was no illegal quid pro quo because Trump literally did not say the words quid pro quo on the phone call.
President do a darn thing wrong. When you look at that conversation, there's no threat. There's no quid pro quo.
There's no quid pro quo, no demand, no pressure, no threat.
Its claims are bogus. There was no quid pro quo.
The transcript comes out, and there is no quid pro quo.
I have zero problems with this phone call. There is no quid pro quo.
There was no threat. There was no quid pro quo in this call.
There was no quid pro quo. There was nothing.
There was no quid pro quo at all.
If you remember at the beginning, it was quid pro quo.
Okay, first of all, just the way he says it, you know he has no idea what it means. He says the words quid pro quo the way you read a subway map in a foreign country. El treno per l'aeroporto. Honey! I think it's this one, this uno. Second, you don't need to literally say the words quid pro quo for it to be a quid pro quo. It can be a crime even if you don't say the name of the crime while you're doing it. You can still be busted for buying weed even if you don't say, "Hello, I'm interested in possession of cannabis, please." "And how much do you want?" "Well, my intent is to distribute." But don't take it from me, take it from Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who said this about Bill Clinton's impeachment in 1999.
He doesn't have to say go lie for me to be a crime. You don't have to say let's obstruct justice for it to be a crime. You judge people on their conduct, not magic phrases.
Of course, if we did judge Trump on magic phrases, that'd work too, because he says quid pro quo like he's casting a spell at Hogwarts. Quid pro quo. Look. Look, everyone. Come. I just turned my bat into a lawyer. Not all the way, but close. Not only was this obviously a quid pro quo, but it turns out Trump was basically dragging as many countries as he could into his political crusade to investigate Joe Biden and prove that the Russia investigation was somehow a deep state witch hunt orchestrated by the Democrats. As we found out last week, he also involved Australia, Italy, and the UK in his personal political crusade. In fact, he specifically asked the UK for help after they got their new Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who has been very friendly to Trump. I mean, look at these two. This looks like an audition room where two less good-looking actors are about to lose out on a role to Nick Nolte. You also here for Prince of Tides? Yeah, me too. I didn't learn any of the lines. I'm just gonna make stuff up. Whoa, these tides today, huh? Lot of tides, yeah. Who's the girl in this movie? Barbara Streisand. Oh, me. I'm never gonna get it now. Then last week, of course, after involving Russia, Ukraine, Italy, Australia, and the UK in his personal political vendettas, Trump just confessed on TV and, for the hell of it, threw China in there, too.
What exactly did you hope Zelensky would do about the Biden after your phone call? Exactly. Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens. It's a very simple answer. they should investigate the Bidens. Likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens.
So now he's asking China, too. At this point, it would be easier for cable news shows to tell us which countries Trump hasn't tried to extort. Now, Republicans first tried to argue there was no illegal quid pro quo, but now that he's literally said the crime out loud on TV, you might be asking yourself, how could they possibly defend him? Well, Republicans have come up with a new defense. He was just joking.
Are you comfortable with what the president has said here in this call for foreign governments, Ukraine and China, to investigate his political opponent?
Well, I doubt if the China comment was serious, to tell you the truth. The president loves to go out on the White House driveway. I haven't talked to him about this. I don't know what the president was thinking, but I do know he loves to bait the press.
Do you think it's appropriate for President Trump to ask China and Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
George, you really think he was serious about thinking that China's going to investigate the Biden family?
I don't know if that's a real request or him just needling the press, knowing that you guys were going to get outraged by it. I think he did it to provoke you to ask me and others and get outraged by it.
Yeah, but come on, he's the president. We have to take his words seriously. It's not his job to outrage people. You're talking about him like he's some shock jock with a morning radio show. If you ask me, China should investigate Biden, and oh, do you know what that sound means? It's time for the wolf pack to call in with your sex questions. Yeah. And remember, whoever has the dirtiest question wins 2 free tickets to tonight's Monster Truck Show. Of course, everyone knew what Trump was doing when he was doing it. The president mysteriously suspended hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid that Ukraine desperately needed, and then he asked the president of Ukraine to do us a favor by investigating a political rival. At the same time, his personal lawyer was going around telling reporters, we're meddling in an investigation. There's nothing illegal about it. Someone could say it's improper. Somebody, how about everybody? I mean, even the president of Finland, when he met with Trump last week, was like, get your crime hand away from me. Then, on top of the facts we already had, last week we got newly unearthed text messages from State Department officials in which they made it very clear that they also knew exactly what was going on. Now, as we established, Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer, who is in no way a government official, was basically acting as the middleman between Trump and Ukraine on all this, which right off the bat is a terrible choice. I mean, that's like if you were putting together an Ocean's 11-style team for your bank heist and you chose as your computer expert Frank Costanza. Although he'd still probably be better than Rudy at giving Trump legal advice.
There was no quid pro quo.
You don't know what the hell you're doing!
Now, Rudy has repeatedly insisted he was acting on orders from the State Department and even going so far as to go on Fox News and show them phone calls and text messages from one State Department official, in particular named Kurt Volker.
You didn't get involved in this on your own. Did our State Department ask you to go on a mission for them?
They did. You know who I did it at the request of? The State Department. It's all here, right here. The first call from the State Department. I went to meet Mr. Zelensky's aide at the request of the State Department. Here's Kurt saying, great, I will tell Yermak and he'll visit with you there, thanks. Mr. Mayor, how was your meeting with Andre? Do you have time for a call? Best, Kurt.
Man, you know you're a bad criminal when you keep the evidence against you on multiple devices. He's got a phone, an iPad. What's next? Alexa, what's it called when you ask someone to do a favor for you in exchange for money?
It's called a quid pro quo.
Damn it! Now, Rudy pointed the blame directly at the State Department, so naturally Democrats called Volker, the former State Department official, to testify last week, and he revealed to them some incredibly damning text messages that made it clear that people at the State Department knew exactly what was happening at the time. In one text, Volker told a Ukrainian official that a meeting with Trump was basically contingent on the Ukrainian president doing the investigation Trump wanted.
From Kurt Volker to Ukrainian presidential advisor Andrei Yermak. And it says, good lunch, thanks. Heard from White House. Assuming President Z convinces Trump he will investigate. Get to the bottom of what happened in 2016. We will nail down date for visit to Washington. Good luck. See you tomorrow. Kurt.
They wrote it all down. It's all right there. He even signs his name and says, see you tomorrow, Kurt. So weird. It's like if you left a ransom note cut out for magazine letters that said, give us the money or you'll never see your son again. Have a great weekend, Kurt, the kidnapper. But the text messages get even more Text messages get even more explosive. For example, there's an exchange between two State Department officials where one of them expresses concern about what's going on, and the other one realizes they should not be texting about this at all.
On September 1st, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, texts the U.S. ambassador to EU, Gordon Sondland, and writes this: "Are we now saying that security assistance and White House meetings are conditioned on investigations?" Sondland says, "Call me."
Damn. Anytime you text someone and they respond by saying, "Call me," it is not good. If you text a date looking forward to tonight and they text back, "Call me," that date is not happening. The only thing worse is seeing those three bubbles come up for a while as you just wait for your response. Like, I can see you typing. Are you still typing? How long is this message? Are we committing a crime? Oh, no! Oh, no, it is a crime! So now with a second whistleblower coming forward and all this new evidence coming out, Trump's looking for a fall guy, and since he's a political mastermind who apparently is an expert at manipulating the press, he looked around and he found the perfect guy, the guy who everyone would definitely believe was responsible for all of this, Energy Secretary Rick Perry.
President Trump has a new defense for his July 25th phone call to the president of Ukraine that is at the center of House Democrats' impeachment inquiry. Trump told House Republicans Friday that he was urged to make the call by Energy Secretary Rick Perry. Sources say Trump suggested it was a call he didn't even want to make.
That's right. Trump wants us to believe the mastermind behind all this was Rick Perry. I'm sorry, but people are not going to believe Rick Perry is the brains behind all of this because what? Because he wears glasses? But don't take it from me, take it from this guy.
I see Rick Perry the other day. He put glasses on so people will think he's smart. And it just doesn't work. You know, people can see through the glasses.
Trump probably forgot he said that, then saw Rick Perry one day and said, "That guy must be smart, he wears glasses." All the evidence is right in front of us. The president used his office and the entirety of American foreign policy to pursue his personal political goals. And people knew at the time that it was an obviously corrupt abuse of power. So Republicans, if you're confused about any of this, I'll say it very slowly. This was a
quid pro quo.
This has been a closer look.